So I'd like to welcome you to the new now high-end highness wow factor evolution. I am Majesty ALLINICOLE Wow. Thank you for joining me for this segment. So I want to take a few moments to talk about the contrast that levels you up for consistent cash flow in a new now high-end space. And the reason why this is important is because a lot of times people are very confused about the conflicting dynamics or the contrast that goes on within their business, and especially around the branding factor as well. But what I know to be true is that a lot of times the contrast that you're experiencing is really helping to expand you so that you can come into the higher awareness of how to take divinely guided, right inspired actions that are actually going to catapult you into a completely different high-end hemisphere. And that's exactly what you want. You want to be in a very different space. You don't actually want to just be in the high-end space of what you traditionally see occurring in the marketplace. You're here to do something different, all right? And to be something different, to be really your unique self. Your true authenticity comes when you can affluently position the truth of who you are in the marketplace. And a lot of times, the reason why people aren't seeing certain types of results is because, and I've talked about this in other segments, where you're not really being true to who you are. And unfortunately, most of you don't really know who you truly are as it relates to high-end success. And the reason for that is because a lot of times looking at the traditional frameworks that are offered, that you see in demonstration, they're not really reflective in the higher capacity that you're here to play out. And certainly others are being very successful from those different types of frameworks. And I am going to say it, a lot of times they're being successful because they're selling you information or telling you information of what they feel that you need based on results that they've gotten with what systems they've used. But cookie cutter formats are not going to work for people when we are in an era of individuality and unique expression of a brand and of an empire, which means that each individual has to really tap into their unique branding and business DNA and discover what that is. And that shifts from phase to phase. It metamorphosizes in very unique ways. But within that process is where you're actually going to discover what is true for you in the moment as it relates to the high-end success. So sometimes you will be bucking up or feel yourself kind of bucking up against these different structures, and they're not working out for you. Not at all, really. Not in ways that are more meaningful, that are really moving the needle. So within that, because you're being conditioned to show up a certain way, to perform a certain way, to create a certain way. It's not really allowing the unique expression that you are to come forth in truth. So where there is no truth of expression and awareness around that area, there can't be the level of affluence or the law of affluence and the law of accumulation to really flow your way. So, within that, what you have to do is leverage the contrast and see it much like an extraction process, right? It's that pressure that's being put on the coal to produce the diamond. And metaphorically, we hear that used very commonly, but it is very true. And so sometimes the contrast is not only giving feedback in terms of shifts that need to be made, but it is also too making sure that when you start to level up, you are not leveling up in the traditional formats, all right? Because you're going to get much more of the same. You may get a raindrop or two of success that comes in, but it won't be consistent. And so, what the contrasting season or experience is providing for you is for you to level up where there is the consistency in terms of the cash flow. But that's only going to happen in a newer high-end space experience, right? And so with that being said, there's a lot of simplification that comes in. It doesn't really take as much as most are saying. And I even want to bring this up because I talk about this in one of my courses that's called, figures to followers. And basically it's focusing on your figures first versus followers on platforms and different things, because that really does not lead to profitability. And there's a difference between being um, popular and being profitable. And though you can have both, but sometimes you have to make one the higher priority in how you set things up. Otherwise, you can have yourself on social media and you can become popular and an influencer and still be broke as all get out, right? Or working harder to get to a certain point that ultimately is never going to bring you the success that you are here to bring forth. And I'll actually link an article around the figures, focus on figures, not just followers. I'll link that. That one's more so pertaining to YouTube, but my course is designed in terms of just social media, in general. But it will be helpful for you to actually check that article out. You can actually listen to it. It's on Medium. And so I'll have the link, to that below. But leveling up to have the consistency in a newer high-end dynamics and leveraging the new now vibration, because the power is in the now moment, which means things can shift and change, but you want to be able to ride the wave of the new now testament, so to speak, of this experience, and then allow it to bring to you what is necessary and required as it relates to revenue recognition, which is a whole nother training and teaching that I do. um, and that's important, is because you want revenue recognition, not just to be recognized. Something that I teach on is that don't focus so much on feedback from others and even social media comments. You want feedback that's going to feedback, praise that pays, okay? It's good to have both, but one thing we know that if you're in business, that's a completely different scope of how you show up and your intentionality. Of course, you're here to add value, tremendous value on multiple levels, but you want to make sure that you are creating the win-win. And the win-win is going to involve that divine right value exchange in terms of what you're giving out and what you also are receiving from your target audience on multiple levels. And that divine right value exchange is a holistic premise. So it's not always going to be the financial aspect, but in the high-end space, in this regards, it's about high-end experiences, even more so than the figures, so to speak. But that trajectory does fill in, and it typically fills in very nicely. But the only way that it really does is that you have to be able to leverage in the now the contrasting dynamics and get present and start to kind of investigate it a little bit in terms of, I'm curious to know what this contrast is expanding me into, and versus like, oh no, nothing's working. I've been doing this for so long and nothing, I'm not getting results. Now I need to go and find the next, shiny object, which we know that's not going to work for you either, because you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, sippy cup, keychain, and, probably opened up the shop for this thing by this point, right? So sell that business and do something else, metaphorically. So again, hard times can lead you to high-end success, but it is going to be in a much smarter framework. We hear the common phrase, work smarter, not harder. And so, yes, you can get to high-end success, but a lot of times it is the hard way that you are being taught and conditioned to go that route. And again, can it lead you to that? It can. Does it have to be that way? No, there's always going to be work involved and things that you have to do, right? And you should want to and get excited about that for sure. But you have to be mindful about the way that you are building and positioning yourself during these times, because you don't want to set yourself up where you're in the constant loop of lacking. And lacking doesn't always mean just in lacking finances and resources a certain way. It's lacking awareness. And as the Bible says, people perish for a lack of knowledge. If you lack the knowledge that you need, the know-how, or the know-who, in a sense, to be able to move forward, then yeah, it doesn't matter what your best attempts are. You're going to continue to go around, that mountain and be on that human hamster wheel that is just a never-ending cycle. This is crazy, but it is real, and I certainly know what that not only looks like, I know what that feels like. And the contrast that I have experienced within my years of business um, definitely pushed me into a newer trajectory and understanding in terms of high-end success, and definitely not to take the traditional route to that, um, but to allow the expansiveness to be there in ways that are going to be unique for me. So, as I was mentioning before, is that taking time to get present, to know, what are going to be your next best steps. And that's something that you need to just be present with and ponder. And one thing I like to do in processes is invite people to step into what I call the blank slate activity. It's really like being a blank canvas, and stepping into kind of this neutral zone, in a sense, in the power of the present. So I think I'm going to do that now, with you all. I think it would be really beneficial. So what I'm going to invite you to do is to close your eyes, and I want you to take 3 nice deep breaths, please. All right. Now, just for a moment, I want you to imagine that you stepped outside of everything that you've ever known about high-end success. Doesn't matter whether you've achieved high-end success or not, just your thoughts around that, what you've been conditioned to believe, or just, yeah, your own thoughts about that, or anything just around business and success in general, or how you've learned about building structures or establishing your brand. So I want you to step outside of everything that you have known and just be in this blank slate, this blank space, so to speak, just neutral space. And we're just going to be there just for a few moments. Take a few deep breaths, please. All right. Now, some of you might have gotten some awareness around some things, and some maybe not. And so just being present now in that space of neutrality, so to speak, just a blank canvas. What are some of the things that are coming up for you? Or what are you sensing? What are you feeling? What are you noticing? What are you becoming more aware of? Take a deep breath, please. And even if nothing came up, that's fine. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take a deep breath. And now you can integrate yourself back into the awareness of the knowledge base that you've known about in terms of high-end success, success in general, and being in business and branding. And what you'll find is that over the next, few days and weeks or so, that you'll be coming into a grander perspective around the new now high-end advantage that's going to be uniquely for you. And see, that is the benefit in terms of you being able to get into your own unique information versus a lot of um, tactics and or strategies, I should say, being offered to you. Here's what you need to do. Here's what's going to help you to get X, Y, and Z because this was accomplished by me this way. It's like, no, You need to be present in your own unique individuality space and allow that type of wisdom and insights to rise up for you of what's unique for you. And then guess what? You will then start to be able to incorporate or start aligning more with certain types of frameworks or strategies or so, but they're going to fill in a different way that you'll be able to start applying them and executing on a higher level. And then that's where the results will come, from doing it that way. So going back to what I was mentioning in terms of the contrast that levels you up for consistent cash flow in a new high-end space. So, what does that new high-end or new now high-end space, what does that look and feel like for you? You may not be able to actually see what that is, but you can get a sense of what I like to create in this space and what are possibly some of the things from the traditional frameworks that I like, but maybe I can do this in a very different way under this new vibration, new energy. And a process that I created and term I coined High-END-i-tize, which I, have a work within the description that you can check out. And it's about high-END-i-tizing your life and your business, basically your lifestyle entrepreneurship. And also I have something for branding as well, the new high-end branding zone effect and being able to learn how to be a brand expression. And so those are resources that will help you to get positioned for your uniqueness to come forth with the prompts and the right, yes, types of, if you want to call it somewhat structures in a way, that is still going to be really unique to how you customize your success. But that's what's most important is that you being able to extract your unique branding and business DNA of your new high-end DNA, right? Leveraging the power of the now, so that you can rightfully position yourself and affluently align, I should say profitably position yourself and then affluently align yourself for high-end success in this new trajectory framework. So again, you may be going through some challenges right now, or some of you, maybe it's not challenging from a hardship perspective, but you are experiencing maybe some contrast, and contrast often can result in shifts. And sometimes divine disruptions happen or divine demolitions happen in some cases so that you can make shifts to new platforms that maybe you need to explore that you aren't, or returning and revisiting to some platforms that maybe you haven't been on there for quite some time. So it can show up in a variety of different ways. But the thing is that you have to be very mindful. You have to be sensitive to these different shifts. And because when you're not, then that's when contrast will come in. And contrast serves you, but it serves you again in the leveling up. And sometimes so much so that it really beats you in a way. It does feel like that. I wanted to say something else, but I won't. But it definitely can challenge you in ways that is just far beyond the stretch of the imagination, that you probably can't even explain to people what's, the craziness that's going on with you or has been. But it's that level of contrast, and then I can't revisit these activities, that's going to then expand you into newer ways of doing things. And it doesn't matter whether you know what those newer things are at this point. When you start to get present again, it's going to uniquely come up for you. So this is important. So reposition your mindset, see from a very profitable perspective in terms of how your contrast can really serve you for this consistent cash flow level. And just ask again, how is this contrasting experience setting me up for consistent high-end success? What is my contrast to consistent cash flow advantage? That's the question right there to be asking and to be present with. And again, you may not get insight right away. Some of you will, or some of you will get an aha or get a sense of, I need to go and check this out. I need to go and apply this. And it may not be that you come up with a full cohesive plan, so to speak, but it may be just take this step and then the next step is revealed to you, as you take that first one. But again, for some of you, you may get a full-fledged 30-day plan. Here's what you need to be executing on. Or you'll be inspired to sit down and create one. And again, like I said, there's resources within the description that can, help you, with that too. And I'll include the blog post, just a few things that can, yeah, help you to level up. But just be encouraged because it is your time to be catapulting your success into these new high-end hemispheres. And so that you can create not just the business life, but the life in general that you're here to live, especially in this new now high-end expansion. That's what the evolution of the wow factor is all about. You're here to create the wow that's right for you, as it relates to your worthwhile, outstanding works or your wealthy, opulent works. All right. And doing that in this new now trajectory. Okay. So I'm going to leave it there for this particular segment, but I definitely look forward to being back with you soon. Until then, I am wishing you the highest high-end success. Stay blessed.